Yeah, the headroom. Yeah, so good evening, everybody. So we are. I'm so sorry. I want to first apologize to Dr. Odebowale. He has been waiting. We were supposed to do this by 6 p.m. Unfortunately, you know the road in Lagos State. So I'm so sorry once again to everybody. I apologize. And thank you for condoning me, Dr. Odebowale, High Priest.
No, you're
So
welcome. You're welcome. I understand how it
let's
is.
so let's
I
just
understand how
continue.
it is in Lagos. Yes, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. So yesterday we were discussing minimum wage, and a few topics, also emerged from it that are also important. So first off, you mentioned that senators are not supposed to be. In fact, you were clear about saying that mortuary attendants should be earning more than senators, and that sounded
Exactly.
the bit, so. But then, so what? Let's start with that. Would you advocate that salaries of senators be reduced, or would you join those who believe that running a bicameral legislation in itself is expensive and that we should just scrap it and revert to unicameral? Which one would you, reducing their salary
Well,
or scrapping the bicameral?
I thank you, Shegun. I will join those who advocate for the scrapping of the upper legislative chamber
And what would
without
be
even
your,
thinking twice. Because, I wasn't born in the 50s. I
mm,
was born in the 60s. I wasn't born in the 50s, but I read a lot about what happened. And I can still find documentation concerning what happened, what was achieved because of the adoption of the Westminster system. I give you a quick instance. You know, when we started this journey after Lord Dugard, you know, brought this ordinance of amalgamation in 1914, the very first attempt at legislation was in 1922. That was with Clifford.
Clifford? Yeah.
And that was just a caricature. The Clifford Constitution was not of general application. It didn't apply to all parts of the country. It did not apply to the northern part, for instance. It was just about Lagos, the Legislative Council in Lagos, you know. And those who were members representing Nigeria were largely illiterate traditional rulers and political leaders, you know, who were ready to do the bidding of the colonial administration. After that, agitation started by the returning, the captives who came from Sierra Leone, these Saro people who felt marginalized because they thought they were educated and that they should, also sit at the same table with the Europeans. It was not because they wanted to emancipate the people, no. They wanted, they had become Christians. They had been educated. So they were seeing themselves as different from the rest of the society. They wanted to join the Legislative Council. The agitation continued. And until 1946, when you had the Richards Constitution. The Richards Constitution was what introduced the regional system of government. But it was not, it didn't come into full operation until 1951, because Nigerian politicians then criticized Sir Richard, for insincerity, among others. So the Macpherson of 1951 came, and that was when regionalism took. So they're now preparing for what we call independence. And in 1953, the Western region, through Peter Enaoro, moved a motion for independence. The Eastern region joined, but the Northern region said, that they'll be ready for it as soon as practicable. To cut the long story short, by the time after 51, Macpherson, 54, Littleton came. 1954, Littleton Constitution still retained the regional system. And at that time, it was patterned after the Westminster system, the parliamentary system. And that was what was adopted. The 1954 Constitution was what was used for the general elections that produced the premiers for the three regions. And this was what took us to the conferences attended in London and in Nigeria, 57, 58, which led to the adoption of the Independence Constitution, the 1960 Constitution. So at independence, the unicameral system was still retained. And what were the major features of this system? You had political parties which participated in the electioneering process. Members of these parties contested for the vacant assembly seats, parliamentary seats, on the basis of their party. And the parties won, and the parties with the majority from the government. And at independence, 1959, after the election, there was no clear winner. The MPC government had to go into some kind of alliance with the NCNC to form a government. That was how Tafawa Balewa became the prime minister. And Chief Obafemi Awolowo became the leader of opposition. That was also an official position. While the government put in place the ministers who were members of the parliament, were members of the parties, the opposition also formed a shadow government. They had their own ministers appointed. So their major preoccupation was to pick holes into the policies, in the policies of the current government, of the reigning government, so as to present themselves as better to the electorate. That was the system. And you recall, before we got to the independence, while the regions were granted, semi-autonomy, Awo became the premier of the West, Okpara became the premier of the East, and was it Okpara? It was not Okpara after Awo. It was because Nnamdi Azikiwe lost in the Southwest. Then he went to the Southeast to dislodge the person who was there. Nnamdi Azikiwe actually wanted to be the premier of the Southwest, while he kept his own place intact. Amadu Bello was the premier of the North, But of course, if you have read Chinua Achebe's book, There Was a Country, this was what he was alluding to. Then if you read his small book, The Problem with Nigeria, this was what was criticized Awolowo against. That people left. What happened? Let me quickly say this because we will not have the opportunity again. And I thank you for the opportunity given me. There was Action Group. There was NCNC that Abat Macaulay had bequeathed to Zik. And just like what is happening to Labour Party now, Zik had turned NCNC into an Igbo party. There were elements who were die-hard NCNC party chieftains. Funmilayo Ransome Kuti was one of them, very prominent. Adeniro Ogunsoya, Tos Benson, all of these people, they didn't have anything to do with Awolowo. Adisa Akinloye was in IPP, Ibadan People's Party. So while Awolowo wanted to contest to be the premier of the Western region, Nnamdi Azikiwe also wanted to be the premier of Western region. So some members of his NCNC now told him that, look, choose one Yoruba person from among us to contest against Awolowo and you win. He was adamant. He said no. He said no. So that's why on the day of the election, Adisakiloye and others now, moved to the side of the AG. And that was why he lost by just a vote. So he will have become the premier of Western region.
Hmm.
But the system allowed it. So he never forgave Awolowo for establishing Egbemo Odudua, which came after Igbo Unity Forum that they brought in 1947. Egbemo Odudua came much later. They never forgave Awolowo. They never forgave him for it. So they formed the government. Our Premier West, Ahmadu Bello in the north. Then I think Nnamdi Azikiwe, I can't remember now, went to the east and became the premier to dislodge the guy who was already going to win. He did that. At independence, the MPC and the NCNC went into a coalition to form a government. And the AG was in opposition at independence. The independence constitution was clear about unicameral system. And it worked. But before long, there was a crisis in the Western region. That crisis was contrived. Nnamdi Azikiwe stoked the embers of discord, supported Akitola against Awolowo. Ahmadu Bello did that, of course. They were power relations. They had to destroy the West for them to consolidate their hold on power. And part of what they did, because Awolowo was tried, convicted, and jailed for treasonable felony with some of his party supporters. While at that time the Privy Council was the highest court, not the Supreme Court, the Federal Supreme Court. Talking about the hierarchy of courts, the Privy Council in London was the highest court, was still the final court in Nigeria.
Hmm.
Nnamdi Azikiwe and others, and Ahmadu Bello and Odebowale quickly rushed to adopt the Republican Constitution. They jettisoned the 1960 Independence Constitution and they adopted the 1963 Republican Constitution. From that moment, the Queen of England ceased to be the head of state of Nigeria.
Sorry if you're just joining, we have Dr. Odebowale, is also called High Priest. So he's busy discussing prospects for regional government in Nigeria and is at the moment tracing the historical antecedent of parliamentary system of government, how we got there, before he then begins to profile solutions, what we can do going forward. I suspect he has the call on the device he's using for to join this live interview. So if you're just joining, just hold on. We'll be back shortly. I'm sure you will tell the person to call back and he will continue to minister the information he wants to divulge. But I'm sure very, very short tonight we'll definitely be able to talk about, let me bring him back in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I suspect that a call came into your device and truncated the call.
No device. I'm not using any device. It must have
No,
been
no,
the
I mean your
network.
phone.
Maybe for
I
your
mean
end.
whatever you're using for the. Okay, it's okay. Whatever happened that took you off, but you're back. So you were discussing how the
See,
Queen
I
of
said
England ceased
1963.
to be the yes.
It seems to be the head of state of Nigeria in 1963. And part of why they rushed to take that decision was to ensure that the Privy Council, which was the final court in the land, ceased to be the final court too. And part of the decision that they made was the creation of Midwest out of the old Western region in the same 1963. Since as against the three regions at independence, we now add four, namely Western region, Midwestern region, Eastern region, Northern region. But the unicameral system was retained. It was retained. And when there was a problem in the South, in the Western region, and they declared a state of emergency, either rightly or wrongly, a sole administrator was chosen.
Pointed.
Dr. Majekodumi. After that, they returned Chief SLA Akitola as the premier. You remember what the action group
This,
took to what the action group took to Privy Council was the declaration by AG that Chief Akitola had ceased to be the premier of the Western region because he had to resign, and the governor of Western region, Oni Aderemi, had advised him to do so, and they had gone ahead to say that DS Adegbero should be the next premier. The Privy Council was going to support Adegbero as the duly elected premier of the Western region. To forestall that, they quickly, Nnamdi Azikiwe and others advised them, they quickly adopted the Republican Constitution. But that was politics. It was politics, yes. They outplayed them. Nigeria became a Republican country in 1963. This was the situation until the general election in 1965. The general election was rigged, allegedly, in the southwest, in the western region, not southwest, then the western region. And that led to a very serious crisis where people were being killed and they were burning houses, killing people and stuff like that. This was the situation before the January 15, 1966 coup, which brought Agui in Rossi.
So I really don't want to
And
cut
when
into
Rossi
this
came,
because
the
I
military
don't know how many
government,
people.
yes,
Can you hear me, sir? I don't know how many people are
I
enjoying
can,
this story, but I don't know
yes.
why. I don't know if we want to exhaust it because it tends to be long.
You
You
don't know
know,
if I
I
want to do
know.
what?
I don't know if people want to hear the full story, but
Oh, okay,
I
okay,
also
okay.
the,
I will brief with it.
yeah,
And
yeah. So
you see, I'm doing this for the
I
benefit
know
of
that
because
exactly. I know,
my
yes.
son was listening to me yesterday. I have a
Mm.
26-year-old son who
Brother
listened
Han.
to me and felt that many of the things he heard from me was strange. So I even owe it a duty as a teacher to let our
Okay,
children know some of these things
I
so
think
that
you should I think you should continue because people say they are listening. So I think you should continue.
yeah,
I felt maybe
thank
they
you.
didn't want to hear the whole.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll be conscious. I'll be conscious of the time, and I'll try to break it. Now, so after 1965 general election, Akitola was returned as the premier. People alleged irregularities as usual, and to 1966 January, there was a coup. Military coup ordinarily will be a unitary government. We adopt a unitary system of government because it is military. The command structure of the military, cannot, allow these niceties about this, about that. But even at that, many of us believe that, you see, the regional structure ought to have been retained. The regional structure ought to have been retained
Hmm.
because
So,
after
sir,
the coup,
Are we missing a lot? Because that is what your
we are,
inference
we
suggests.
are,
Are we missing a lot
we are,
by
because you see,
going?
I just want to let our audience
Okay,
know this. I mean, for those who may
okay.
be much younger than I am, For those who are my age mates and those who are above, who are older, I think they are already familiar with this story. Most of the indices of advancement that we can point at, even now, came as a result of the regional system of government. They came as a result because we could not go to the parliament to utter garbage. Every member of the ruling party, the government, went to the parliament prepared because they had debates. Not this clowning thing that you find in the National Assembly now. They debated, and the opposition will stand to pick holes into the proposed policies of the government. They debated everything: education, health, environment. There was a time that the University of Ibadan students had to move to the parliament at Ibadan because of the Anglo-Nigeria Defense Pact, 1962. When the parliamentarians were delegated because the university students were following the debate, and they didn't want the United Kingdom, who had just granted us the nominal independence, to have a military base in Nigeria. There was this symbiosis between the town, between the people and their elected representatives. However imperfect. And this was part of the reasons why Shoyinka, as young as he was, could move to a radio station. I mean, nobody can do that now because of the complexity. But he moved into a radio station. He substituted the cassette which the premier SLA Akitola was going to broadcast with his own. Now get out, you kidding? He was eventually arrested. He was tried, but of course he was found not guilty by kind of day shot. So we had an evolving system. They were making their mistakes. They were correcting the mistakes. Then this coup came. When this coup came, if this coup had wanted to be, if the coup plotters and the beneficiaries of the coup, Nrosi, Ojukwu, and others, had wanted to be sincere, the idea of dissolving the regional structure into their so-called provinces and now adopting a unitary system for a country as vast as Nigeria, as diverse as Nigeria, I think was not right. And you see, before the coup, the Igbos had the majority of the army officers in the Nigerian army, in the officers' corps. They had the majority, followed by the northerners. The Yorubas had the least. So those who said Yorubas did not fight, they did not fight. They couldn't have been fighting with nothing. And then even those who eventually fought the war, Alani Akere, Benjamin Adekunle, Alabi Isama, Ariyo, Ayo Ariyo, and all of these, Olubobokun, all of these people, they were not Igbo. So, so they fought on the basis of, look, they killed their own officers. And they left, the only person killed among the Igbos was Lieutenant Colonel Unegbe. And it was because that one was not in the know of the coup. And they didn't allow them to have access to Amori in Abeokuta. They killed him. But you killed Lagema, you killed Rapshodende, you killed Ademulegun, you killed by Malari, you killed Kur Mohammed, you killed all of these people, then you killed Okoti Ebo, Tafa Balewa, Amadou Bello, Akitola. You killed them. Then the father of Femi Fani-Kayode, Chief Remi Fani-Kayode, the deputy premier of Western region, was still in the Land Rover. He had been arrested by Captain Iwobosi, who killed Akitola. He was still with them there. But Akitola did not wait to be arrested. He opened fire, and of course, Iwobosi went to kill him. And part of, I can quickly digress. The Western region had a deputy premier, talking about, each region with its distinctive features. The Western region was the only region with a deputy premier, and it was considered they had their constitutions. Each of these, they had their constitutions, they had their judiciary, they had their police, they had their embassies. So you see, in all of this, it was for identity, it was for service delivery. It was for service delivery. Unlike what we have now, that everything is taken for granted, that every state must produce 3 senators, and you must produce X number of House of Reps. You fix it, uniform, and all of these things. You know, you are not even looking at the peculiarities of these states. It was the military. They started by creating 12 states. After they killed Unrosi on the 29th of July, 1966, they killed him. They had wanted to secede. They now said to keep Nigeria once a tax that must be done. They started the fraud. They inherited the fraud that Unrosi and others wanted to perpetrate. They now turned around. They repeat Decree 34. They brought Decree 8. They created 12 states. You know, arbitrarily. And part of what they did, like I said yesterday, what they did against us in the West, in the Southwest now, the Western region, there was to take the commanding heights of our economy, and they added it to what they call Lagos State. Alakpere, K2, all of these places. Going to these villages, you listen to the dialect of those who are still there. Remo dialect. Ikorodu, Epe, Shimawa, Imota, Agbowa, Ikosi, Ibeju, Lekki, Ibefun. These are Remo villages. And I told you of Ikeja. Ikorodu, Epe joint administration, there was a dispute. Yeah. So when they say Ikeja. Ikorodu, Epe joint administration under Western region. They took all of this, made it
So that's the
Lagos
meaning of
State.
Ikeja, everybody. The meaning
What
of
is the meaning of
Ikeja is
what?
Ikorodu. And no, I'm just
Ikorodu,
letting
Epe
people
joint
know.
administration.
That's the meaning of Ikeja.
Ikorodu,
Ikorodu
Epe
Epe
joint
Joint
administration.
Administration. Ikeja.
As we have Osun Owena in Ondo State, there is a local government there that is jointly administered by Osun State and Ondo State, even now. So, you know, by the time these military people came, they had a mindset, domination. Domination. Agui Irosi arrested Victor Banjo on the 17th of January 1966, 2 days after the coup, when he was not sure whether he was going to be the head of state or not, because he said he didn't participate in the coup. But he said Banjo was with a pistol, he was coming to assassinate him as the head of state. Agui Irosi and Ojuku sentenced Adakaboro to death for asking for freedom for his own Ijaw people. That was how Adakaboro had to fight on the side of the federal government, and he taught the top man in commando about how to, you know, use the amphibious brigade. Adakaboro taught them how to swim. Adakaboro, Irosi and sentenced him to death. So Victor Banjo was in detention when the Civil War started. That was how, you know, he had to fight on the side of the Biafra. And of course, they eventually killed him. So you see, they had a mindset. They were against Ahmadu Bello because Ahmadu Bello said his own people were not ready. And the civil service jobs would not be given to Nigerians, so-called Nigerians, who were educated, that they were taking over everything. That the Igbos are taking over all slots in Nigerian Railway. They are taking over all slots in the police. They were the majority in the Nigerian army. That these people will not be slaves to the Igbos. He said it. Go YouTube, go and check it. He was vehement. Akitola did not even hide his own. Akitola Awolowo was trying to be politically correct. He said so. That his own people were not as educated, I mean, the Western way, as the Southerners, that he was not ready. And it was for the same reason that they opposed the grant of independence in 1953. They said as soon as practicable. So they killed Ahmadu Bello. You now brought Decree 34 of 1966, and a major feature of that decree was the harmonization of civil service. Harmonization of civil service. That was what killed Nrosi. They protested yesterday. I missed the date. July 27 to July 28. He was in the north. He came from the north to the southwest to come and meet Fajui, his friend. Now they chose, T.Y. Danjuma was the one who led those who killed Nrosi now. Theophilus Danjuma, the hero of the Igbo people, and Theophilus Danjuma killed him. He led those who killed him now. Sani Bello was ADC to Nrosi. He was there when Nrosi was killed. Sani Bello, whose son became governor, Sani Bello, who retired as a general, was the ADC to Nrosi. He was there now. So they killed him, believing that he was planning to impose the Igbo ethnic group on the rest of the country. That was what killed Nrosi. And when they shout about Aburi Accord, and Aburi will stand, they know that most of our people are now distracted with existential issues. We want to eat food, we want to do this. When Ankara was the one who invited them to Ghana, and they had the agreement. Why I said Ojukwu was a hypocrite was that the same regional system that is supported Nrosi to abolish was what the Aburi Accord was all about. The same system that you said was not good for unity. So when then the crisis now came, the Aburi Accord was that every region should go back and control its space. That, talking about army, that every region should be autonomous in a way. That was what the Aburi Accord was, the summary of the Aburi Accord. When Gowon came back to Nigeria, his people that say, lie. They wanted it, that it is now with us. We cannot leave it. They're now shouting the dubious mantra, one Nigeria. To keep Nigeria one is a tax that must be done. That's on Aburi we stand is fraudulent. One Nigeria is another fraud. Hypocritical. So Nrosi ought not to have brought that decree, drafted by Nwa. And by some sheer incredible coincidence, all those who advised Nrosi were Igbos. Who will not suspect? Who will not have suspected him? So I support the unicameral system because it is quick. Then you see quality input. No illiterate could aspire to go to the parliament because you will not be able to debate. Unlike now, when you now see all manner of people, they don't even talk. You will debate, then the opposition will be given the floor to tear into shreds whatever you are bringing. It was a serious business. But now you now have two. Then every state has assemblies, and it is not sustainable. It is not sustainable. If you are generating your own funds, you cannot spend it that way. It's because all of us are stealing from the South people. That is why we can afford to be this indulgent. We can afford to be this wasteful. Somebody who will sit for 5-6 times in a year and he earns 29 million naira a month. Another one claims to be in the House of Reps. He's representing his people. He doesn't go home. He stays in Abuja. When he goes home, he goes to distribute grinding pepper machine where there's no electricity. They said one guy, he empowers people. This palliative thing, it is insulting. You are not encouraging people to work. You are giving them handouts. You even distribute indomie and bags of rice. Are people crazy? They talk about palliative. They were buying rice, distributing rice, and
Okay, sir.
indomie
I want
noodles
to
and
ask,
sugar.
sir. There's something came up.
Yes.
in the course of
Yes.
your talk now, and I'm
Yeah.
wondering if harmonization was aimed at unifying Nigeria in order to give privilege to underprivileged regions so that we can take from those who have sufficient and help to
No.
balance for those who do not have. And
No. I think.
then,
I think. Harmonization. Don't let us waste our time. Don't let us argue for Erosi is dead, but those who benefited, who wish to benefit from what he did, they know what I'm talking about. Those who are still alive. Harmonization could not have been in the interest of those who were not ready. The northern region did not even pretend. They were not employing any Nigerian into their civil service. They used to do that before Ahmadu Bello stopped it. The Igbos were many in their civil service, and they asked them to excuse them and they should go to their region. Ahmadu Bello said it. He didn't hide it. He did not hide it at all. In the Nigerian railways, established by the colonialists, they were in the majority. About 70-80% of them were there. And the people believed that they did not allow other tribes to even join. I wasn't born there, but that was the belief. So Ahmadu Bello was not trying to be politically correct. It was frontal. It was brutal. So that was why his people felt that his assassination was deliberate. He said he could not employ any Nigerian. He didn't say any Igbo, any Nigerian, because his people were not ready. He said he would prefer to employ expatriates. And if there were no expatriates, he would get a Nigerian on contract. And that was what he did. He didn't pretend. And while he was at it, he was giving his people scholarship to go abroad. Then they lower standards for them. NDA. He started the recruitment. Customs. Police. Because the other tribes were in these establishments. By virtue of the fact that they had embraced Western education before the North. That was what happened. So Decree 34 was deliberate. Was
so sir,
deliberate.
if you are
How
to
can you
pick,
ask me not to invest? How can you
so if
ask
you
me
are to
not to
pick,
invest?
if you are constrained, sir, if you are constrained to pick to make a choice between returning to regional system of government and
I will
dividing
pick
the
regional
country,
system
like
of government immediately. I will pick regional system of government immediately. I will support the dissolution of this useless state structure that we have, because the military created all of them. The military, 12, 19, 20 something to 36, the military created them by fiat. By fiat. By fiat. The military apologists
so.
who were close to them were the ones they gave opportunities. Look at Delta State. Asaba became the capital because of Miriam, who was married to Babangida. And you had cases like that all over. All over. And I'm saying that it is not sustainable. These states are artificial entities. That's why they cannot produce anything. That's why they cannot develop. It is not right. Year in, year out, they construct roads that their own indigenes don't participate in. They bring in Chinese and Arabs and all of the and Indians. After 2-3 years, the roads will collapse again because their children are not participating. They are not building the capacity of their own children to
To build
confront
their
the
own
challenges
roads.
they face, to build their own roads, to plant what they eat. So what they teach in schools is alienation. You are teaching your children to feel different from the rest of the society. It's not to work. You are not producing problem solvers. You are producing those who feel entitled because they speak English. Yeah, we are not getting to realize that English cannot buy Gary in the market. That your certificate is useless, your PhD is useless. Yeah, and the practical economists are waiting for you. As you get your minimum wage, they are waiting for you. One buying fan. One more buying fan now. What is it? They are waiting.
So
So
I'm
we are
just
not saying
I'm
that,
just
look, these states are artificial. That's why nobody feels committed to them. Nobody. Just like what the colonialists did at the Berlin conference, and they just balkanized the continent, among themselves. In the same way, In the same way that the military got decided to go and create 12 to weaken Ojukwu, because Ojukwu said, on Aburi we stand, and that he would not take instruction from Gowon. I will insist on the sacrosanctity, on the territorial integrity of the eastern region. And I said, okay, let's see how you do it. You are Governor Abiwagba. Then they created. And they appointed their own military governors into these newly created states. You know? And that was, I'm saying that the greatest casualty was the western region. They stole our
So I'm going to
things.
ask you. I'm going to ask you, because if we go to regional system of government now, which is what you have just
Yes.
advocated for, versus those
Mm.
who are asking that we just let everybody be their independent, because a lot of people believe that Nigeria is a country of nations, that we have bundled too
Yes,
many nations together and we are forcing things.
precisely.
So
Precisely.
while there are those who are, proposing that we return to regional
Mm.
government, there are also those who are advocating that we scrap this, like they are proposing balkanization, that each of the, ethnic nations should now become a country, and then there's this Oduduwa Republic, Biafra agitation, and the rest of them. What's your view about these agitations?
Well, you see, let me also say this, that you cannot ask people not to agitate for freedom. Let me just throw in that
Very
immediately,
well.
so I don't begin to sound as if I'm against any agitation, genuine agitation for freedom. You can't tell me that our unity is not negotiable. That is talking rubbish. Even death is negotiable. I can choose the way I want to die. I can run to the express. I can jump into the river. So you don't tell me it's not negotiable. You know. But to talk about Odua nation, look at those shouting Odua nation now. Look at those segments now. Odua nation. You want to which where will be your boundaries? Where your Odua nation?
Southwest. They want to
Where
quickly
is
cut out
Southwest
the
now?
Southwest.
Because if you are talking Odua, you are talking about Yoruba speaking communities now. We are in Kogi. Kogi is not central. We are in Kogi. The Kaba people, the Ujumu, all of this, we are in Kogi. Your Odua nation should also stretch into the Republic of Benin. We have the Ajashe people, we have all of these people. They should spread to the away speaking tribe of Togo. Then you go to Ghana, the Ga speaking people, the Akwaba people, those who say maybe Sisi, Mumbon Sensei. So you see, you have to be able to define it. So I don't want to sound pedantic. I don't want to sound arrogant, but I say it's an insult for those who have not been to any school, those who don't have any skills other than talking, to think that they can lead us without consulting us, without taking us into confidence, without even without knowing how we feel about it. It's an insult. They are all there. They are unserious. That's why
That
you
is
want to go and take over a government. Then you wore military camouflage. You do a badge. Went to Oyo State Secretariat after speaking Indian hemp and all of this. That's their business. Then the Biafra thing, the idea of the Biafra, the civil war, came as a child of necessity. After the mistake had been made by those who killed the politicians and the military officers of other ethnic groups and left their own, Azikiwe was on vacation. Michael Okpara was receiving a Greek ambassador. Dennis Osadebe, the premier of West Midwest, was not killed. No major military officer died. So they committed that error. But later, the reaction in the north was so that no leader at that time would have waited for the total decimation of his people before reacting. So the civil war came as a child of necessity. It came. So, but this one now, that some people are now declaring Biafra Republic because Jonathan lost to Buhari, then Peter Obi lost to Tinubu. It is what I don't understand. Because when they were with Jonathan and they were enjoying everything, there was no Biafra. In fact, even Nnamdi Kanu was a patriotic Nigerian under Jonathan. So we'll be forced to ask them, okay, what has changed? So I'm not against agitation. I am not. I can never be against any agitation for freedom if it is genuine. If we talk about going back to the regional system, yes, I support that. But the present composition of the country, we have 36 states and Abuja. Some people are even claiming to be special citizens in Abuja, 25%. If you have 25% in Abuja, then you may lose in other states and you have become the president. Funny people. Now, very funny people. And senior advocates join them in that frolic of ignorance, of idiocy. Now, they have been operating by convention on the basis of these 6 geopolitical zones. Abi, it is not constitutional. But for a long time, it has been the basis of, of interaction, of engagement. And you can see how fraudulent the drafters of the constitution were, and they are still are. You brought in Federal Character Commission to ensure that every part of the country is adequately represented in appointment, in what have you. But you are against state police. You are against identity. You are against regionalism. But you support federal character, mediocrity. So if you start off with this geopolitical, like take for instance, as a lawyer, I know that the idea of taking land matters to customary matters, marriage matters to Supreme Court doesn't make any sense. That's why you wait for 10 years before you are given any date at the Supreme Court. It was not like that before. You centralize everything. The NJC is nothing but the office of the CJN, writ large. The CJN is the NJC. You are talking about separation of powers, autonomy. The CJN sits in his office. He determines who to become a judge in my state. He determines if a judge is guilty or not, because most of the members of the NJC are his appointees. Is that the way to go about it? We had a regional judiciary before. We had a regional court. We had a regional court of appeal. We had a regional constitution. We are not just brought under the 1999 constitution as amended, and that says it. You are not treating governors as school prefects that the village headmaster will now be dictating to. Is that the way to run the country? Then, in all honesty, what do you think that a state can do to become prosperous with this constitution? If you want to be honest, will it work? No state can do anything until the federal government releases federal allocation. And you saw what happened to Lagos State when they attempted to create LCDAs. How the federal government seized the local government allocation. And it was because it was Lagos. Lagos was able to navigate its way because of the huge revenue base of the state. Is that the way to go about it? So regionalism, at least we solve so many problems. Then you don't put every region in the same jacket. We should have our priorities. We have our areas of strength. We want to concentrate on them. We may compete, but we are not going to bring anybody, or we are going to slow anybody down, because people are not going to catch up. You talk about federal character, you recruit the same citizens into the same Nigerian police or Nigerian army. Because somebody is from a particular state, he gets promoted over his mates and they salute him. You don't see that as bad? Look at how Frank Mba became a DIG within 2 months from CP. His mates are still DC, Deputy Commissioner of Commissioners, and they'll be saluting him. He took that, and of course, he has not seen anything bad in it because it's his own quota. Is that the way to build an institution? Is that the way to build an institution? Say because there are not many people from his state. That's why somebody who should be a deputy commissioner of police is now the DIG, and his mates are saluting him. There are too many things wrong. Too many things. Look at what happened even after the coup. After they killed Rossi. Look at what happened. Brigadier Ogundipe was the most senior. A sergeant told him that he was not going to receive any instruction from him, that he was waiting for a captain to come. Ogundipe was rejected flatly. They just eased him out to Nigeria High Commission in London as the defense attaché. Adeyinka Adebayo was next. That one was given the post of the governor of Western Region. And he was senior to Gowon. But Gowon was a lieutenant colonel. After a while, they had to promote him to Major General. As it happened, after Murtala was killed, and Obasanjo became the head of state, Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, as a lieutenant colonel, became a brigadier. Then, before long, he became a Major General. Sonny Abacha did not forgive him, and that was some of the reasons why he decided that he killed him. They were mates. So many of these things, the problems of the challenges of nationhood, they are there. Therefore, somebody woke up just morning and just said, Nigeria, we hate our native land. Nigeria is not a nation. We are on the way, but our journey is still very, very far. Let nobody pretend. You talk about the nation state. Nigeria has many nationalities, ethnic nationalities within it. We have our distinctive, and I've been telling people, we don't talk about Hausa Fulani, it is fraudulent too. It's misnomer. The Hausa communities are trying to fight for their independence. The Nigerian state is killing them. What my business, whether Emir of Kano, whether you have 10 Emir of Kano, that's their business. They came as intruders. And they suppressed the indigenous people of the north. So for instance, I'm looking forward to a time when the Hausa people will assert their independence. And they choose their own leaders too. Our Yoruba people here, they are going to Mecca. They are blind. They cannot see the moon unless the Sultan sees it. And they are talking about northern domination. Unless the Sultan directs, they cannot kill the ram that they will use their own money to buy. How else do you determine that the people live in bondage? So there are several issues that I want to consider. I support regionalism as a stopgap. With that, we can then now, as Western region, for instance, we redesign our curriculum. We look at the challenges we face, and we allow these challenges to inform what we will do to design our curriculum to build the capacity of our own children. Whoever wants to continue to go to Mecca, go to Mecca, call on in-law. But we will also insist that coming to live with us, we insist on certain practices. If you are saying that I cannot drink anything in the north, I cannot do that, I cannot do that. I can also say, look, coming to stay here, we don't allow anybody to be under the bridge. Living in a place It's not the same thing as becoming a vagrant, becoming a nuisance. You come and be dumping people you fail to train. You bring
Hmm.
them out, you bring them in the night with your sinister motives. You now distribute them. In the morning, you give them Okada to ride. These boys are not the owners of the car. They ride for people. You now sit down waiting to use them. And our own leaders, they are sleeping, collecting revenue, sleeping with Ashewo
Okay,
in
sir.
hotel.
Okay, sir. Well, I know that there's quite a lot to say, and that is why we can't exhaust these topics in just one or two. I think we will find another time to discuss because there are questions about the constitution we operate in Nigeria as well. And I know you have
Yeah,
a lot of things to say about it, but we cannot do that again
precisely.
tonight. Yes.
Uh,
So I want to plead that we would schedule again to discuss the other topics
It's always
because I
my
don't want us
pleasure.
to.
It's my pleasure. It's what I do these days now is I read. I try to drink anything in the night, one bottle, two bottles, then I sleep. But I've been reading and I've been writing. So anytime if I'm not
All right.
outside, if you call me, I'll talk to you. We have to solve the problems of this country together. We have the capacity. We must show that we are different because we have been to school, not because we can speak English, but because we can see things differently. Yeah, and we have to be frank. We have to be brutally frank. Let's call a spade by its proper name. You don't have to be politically correct so that nobody will be angry. No, if people are burning their voters' cards in your place and you are shipping them through Ekeredli, Chuku, and all of these buses, God is good. We brought them to Lagos. We won't allow them to vote. Don't even talk about whether one clinic is free and fair and all of this. It's about self-determination too. That's our own way of understanding it. We will not allow your people to vote in Catholic churches. As we busted those who went to school area to be registered through one INEC commissioner, we will not allow your people to do so. If you are beating them, you are shooting them, you are not allowing them to open their shops because you want to, self-determination, it is your right. A time will come where we will close your shops even in the southwest because you are disturbing us. That's why we are doing our political oro. We are doing our own oro too. You must comply. It is our land. You will not vote. If you cannot vote there, you won't come and alter the demographic equation in somebody else's land. That is not also fair. That is what you are doing. It is not fair. We will not allow it under the guise of democracy. I will teach you about democracy. I study classics. Democracy is not in the interest of anybody. It's the dictatorship of the minority over the majority. Yeah, that's democracy for you, as it was practiced in Athens. Democracy in Athens was not beneficial. Socrates was killed, was executed because he criticized it. So we won't keep quiet for you, Indigo or anybody, Kanu or anybody. Fight for the rights of your people, but you will not turn my own people into slaves because I want you to see me as an activist who is quoting Karl Marx. I don't join that stupid bandwagon. If you cannot vote, if you cannot go to your area, you should not come here. It's as simple as that. That's a clear message. If you are shooting young people, they could not write mathematics exams, WAEC exams. You all keep quiet. You are now speaking English in Lagos and Ibadan because your own children are here in our own midst. Where there is peace, hypocrite non queer. You will not vote. You won't be allowed to choose our leaders for us. Go and choose for your own people. You won't choose our leaders for us. Obi is a fraudulent person. Yeah, he knows it.
Doc-
Challenge me on it
Doctor,
and let us fight. Hey,
doc,
serious.
I
Hey,
please,
serious, Koko. We've been keeping
I,
quiet and we've been looking at you and you think you are smart. Let
I
us,
please.
Shegu, let them abuse me. I'm ready for them.
I will
I'm
ask
ready for
you
them.
in our next live virtual interview. I will ask you whether you are part of those who brought out the old on election day. But that will be
Whether
topic
I
that we
am
will
part,
discuss it. Those who
whether
brought
I
out
was
Oro
sort of
on the
those
day
who
of
brought that Oro. No,
on the day of
forget. I
election.
support Oro. If
Okay.
they can sit at home, if they can sit at home and they can enforce it, We also we are Oro, yes, we will do our Oro. We will do our. It is not when you come to our place that you now talk about one Nigeria when we are doing Oro. You talk about your right to move. We don't have a right to even open any shop, to buy, to move around in your space. You don't come here to tell us how to do it. You won't be fair. And if you don't have a
Thank you so
sense
much,
of
Dr.
decency,
Odebowale.
we'll
We
teach
will
you.
continue. We will
Thank you.
continue this another time. Yeah, and I see you, Tim Ajek. Thank you so much. Running out of battery resource right now, so